walls. This wall is, we're not, this is 2,000 years ago, 13,000. It's 2,000 miles, but we need about 1,000 miles of wall, okay, at our southern border, because we have a lot of natural barriers. And we can build that so easy. These guys don't even know. Do you know they wanted to build the wall years ago, a couple of decades ago? They wanted to build it. They couldn't get it approved because they couldn't get their environmental impact statements approved. Can you believe this? It's true. It's a true story. There were snakes in the way, or there were toads in the way, or there was something else, a frog, a mosquito. They couldn't get it approved. No, they couldn't get it approved. So, they couldn't. In the meantime, China is digging in the South China Sea massive fortresses, massive airports for military planes, okay? And they dig with these incredible excavators, and they rip the hell out of the ocean, and they put it up, and they're building this incredible fortress in the middle of the South China Sea. Do you think they went and got an environmental impact statement? I don't think so. I don't think so. So, we have people against me. We have people that have spent a fortune. Ted Cruz was always very nice to me, I have to say. Very nice. I can do anything. And he said, I agree. Right? It was the talk of the town. No matter what I said, the others said, oh, well, we don't like what you said about the Muslims. We don't like what you said about illegal immigration. We don't like this. Ted Cruz would always say, oh, I like it. But I knew at some point he has to come and hit me, right? So finally I said, Ted, will you please start to hit me so I can, do a number? Because I'm much better when somebody hits me. I like that better. I feel better. Inside my gut, I just feel better. So finally he did it. And I think we've done a good job. I think we've done a good job. Now, one of the things they talk about, and I have to talk to you about this, eminent domain. Can you believe he took an name? Nobody even knows what the hell it is, eminent domain. It's where basically a city, a government, the country will take property. And by the way, pay the people for the property. They don't say it that way. They say, Trump wants to take property and not pay. I saw this character, one of the 22 idiots from this National Review that are writing this nonsense. I think it's the best. I think it was good that happened. Look, the thing's going to be out of business, in my opinion, in less than a year. It's dying. So they're getting some good publicity for themselves. I don't even think it's good. I think it's good for me, but we'll find out. But you know what? They look and they talk about eminent domain, and they say how Donald Trump took a house. Number one, I never took the house. And I offered the person millions of dollars for this house. I got so lucky. I left Atlantic City about 8 years ago. I got so lucky. Great business decision. I got out before it collapsed. Great business decision. But one of the things is take the house. The woman gets paid for the house. But I offered her much more money. Ultimately, we didn't do the deal. The woman was in the house. I offered her $5 million for the house. She stayed there forever. She ends up getting $700,000 for the house. Not from me. She would have made a fortune. She could have retired to Palm Beach, Florida, a wonderful place, okay? For $5 million, you buy a little tiny speck of a house. $5 million doesn't buy much in Palm Beach. But they use this as a commercial. It's a false commercial because I never took the house. But what eminent domain is eminent domain is for when you want to build a highway, when you want to build a roadway, when you need land for a school to educate your children, when you need land for a hospital where you can't get, it's called the power of eminent domain. Eminent domain, I'm not in love with eminent domain, but eminent domain is a good thing, it's necessary. In fact, driving up here, there was this beautiful roadway, and I said, oh, if they use the power of eminent domain, because you could see a little corner of a lot was taken. I'm very good at real estate, so I say, oh, look, that lot isn't exactly squared off. They needed the corner to create a road. Eminent domain is something that's a positive thing, not a negative thing. Now, sometimes cities will use it in order to do business. Let's say a person has a house or a person has a backyard and they're going to build a factory that's going to employ 5,000 people. And sometimes a city will use the power of eminent. And by the way, if you don't get that property, they're going to go to another city and they're going to spend millions of dollars and they're going to build a factory there and they're going to employ 5,000 people, but not in your city. Eminent domain is a positive thing. It's got to be used judiciously. But where else is eminent domain? These characters, these conservative guys, I'm going to read you some stuff because it was interesting. I love it. I love it. Where else is eminent domain used? For pipelines. Now everybody, all of these guys are in favor of the Keystone Pipeline, right? When Obama rejected, oh, how dare they reject. You couldn't build 5 feet of the Keystone Pipeline without eminent domain. It's going through people's farms. It's going through people's houses. It's going from Canada, Cruz's former home. Might still be his home. Actually, he has a better chance of running for Prime Minister of Canada because he has no problem. Well, he was born there. But eminent domain, to go from Canada to Texas, think of it, Canada to Texas, that's a long way. In order to get there with the Keystone, which I favor, by the way, but I favor it in a different form. I want a piece of it. In other words, not for me, by the way, for the country. They'll say, oh, that's terrible, Donald wants a piece. The old days, they'd take a piece for themselves. Me, no, I can't do that. But I want the Keystone. But these politicians don't think that way. For us to use the power of eminent domain and make that pipeline, they're going to make a lot of money with that pipeline. And it's really good for Canada, which is fine, they're a good neighbor. But I want like 25% of the profits forever. If we're going to use our powers, why are we just doing it? So I want the Keystone, I want the jobs. It's good to have extra. Anything we can do in terms of getting more fuel is good. Okay, oil is good. Including ethanol, by the way, I have to say. We have great support from the ethanol folks. And I feel that way. We need fuel. We don't ever want to be subject to OPEC and these people. We don't want to be subject to them. But when you think about eminent domain, so if you go to the login, if you go to the Keystone Pipeline and their sales page, you'll see a whole section on eminent domain. Yes, we have to use the power of eminent domain because you've got to go through hundreds of private properties to get the pipeline. The only way you can do it is through eminent domain. Now, you may be able to make a couple of deals, but basically what happens is the government says, we're going to put a pipeline through your backyard, and we're going to pay you a lot of money. Now, usually you make settlements before it ever goes to court, but you get paid. But without it, you wouldn't have any highways, you wouldn't have any roads. So they do stories on Donald Trump is against, in favor of eminent domain. And I'm saying to myself, does anybody know that that's how you build roads, and that's how you build schools, and that's how you build so many things? And it's really unfair because people don't know. And the way they put the ad, which is really false, but the way they portray it is, we take the property. And I'm saying to myself, take the property. These people make a fortune with these properties. In fact, you have guys, as a business, when there's an eminent domain taken, they will go and buy the property before or make a deal to represent the people to take a piece of the action because the government will pay you much more than the property is worth because politically, they want to be politically correct. They don't want to get bad press. You get the market value for the property, but if you're smart, you get twice the market value, 3 times. So I'm only saying this. I don't love eminent domain, but you need it. Otherwise, you don't have a country. You won't have any highways, you won't have any railroads, you won't have any of these things. And you won't have any pipelines. The Keystone Pipeline. Every one of these people wants a Keystone Pipeline. Without eminent domain, it won't go 15 feet. Does that make sense to everybody, right? So they hit me on eminent domain. I mean, sort of a boring subject, to be honest with you, but at some point I said, I've got to explain eminent domain. You make a fortune. You should be so lucky when they want to take a piece of your property with it. No sale to Mr. Miller will yield you the kind of return you're going to get from the government. So that's it. So